If you seek truth, seek it for yourself, not from the crowd. Epictetus. What if I told you that the lack of friends in your life is not a weakness, but a powerful signal? A signal most people misunderstand. In a world that glorifies popularity, constant messages, and endless social circles, being alone is often seen as something to fix. But Stoic philosophy tells a very different story, one that might completely change how you see yourself. Have you ever noticed that the more you grow, the fewer people truly understand you? That the deeper your thoughts become, the quieter your social life gets? This isn't accidental. It's a pattern that has followed thinkers, leaders, and philosophers for centuries. The Stoics believe that solitude isn't emptiness, it's space. Space to think clearly, to build inner strength, and to live according to your own values rather than borrowed opinions. In this video, you'll discover why having fewer friends may actually mean you're developing independence, wisdom, and emotional control, qualities most people spend their entire lives chasing without success. But there's a hidden danger too, one that only awareness can protect you from. So stay with me until the very end, because the final lesson may completely reframe how you experience loneliness and turn it into one of your greatest advantages. Number 1, you value depth over noise. When you value depth over noise, it doesn't mean something is missing in you. It means something unnecessary has fallen away. The world keeps insisting that more connections equal more meaning, more voices equal more truth, more interaction equals more life. But you feel the tension in that lie. You sense that constant chatter dulls the mind and fragments the soul. So you step back, not out of fear, not out of bitterness, but out of discernment. Warned, beware of dissipating your thoughts, keep them concentrated. You're not avoiding people, you're protecting your inner clarity. You'd rather have fewer exchanges that sharpen you than endless ones that leave you restless and scattered. That preference is not weakness, it's discipline. Depth asks something of you. It demands attention, patience, and the courage to sit with your own thoughts without immediately numbing them. Noise, on the other hand, asks nothing. It's cheap, loud, and endlessly available, and you already know which one strengthens you. Seneca wrote that being everywhere is being nowhere. When you choose depth, you're choosing to be fully present with what actually matters, your values, your inner dialogue, your direction. This is where Stoicism quietly aligns with your instinct. The Stoics didn't glorify crowds. They glorified clarity. They believed that a calm, ordered mind was worth more than approval, applause, or constant company. You feel that truth, even if you've never named it before. But here's the challenge. Valuing depth means resisting the impulse to fill silence just to prove you belong. It means not reaching for distraction the moment discomfort shows up, and that takes strength. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." If you want to be grounded, you must act grounded. That means practicing restraint with your attention. Not every thought needs to be shared. Not every moment needs to be documented. Not every invitation needs a yes. Each time you choose stillness over stimulation, you train your mind to go deeper instead of wider, and depth compounds. You may notice that your standards quietly rise. Surface-level interaction begins to feel exhausting. Fast opinions, shallow humor, performative emotion, they no longer feed you. This doesn't make you cold, it makes you selective. And selectivity is a form of self-respect. Stoicism teaches that your energy is finite. Where you spend it shapes who you become. So if you spend it on noise, you become noisy inside. But if you invest it in reflection, learning, and inner order, you become solid. Unshakable. The kind of person who doesn't need constant validation because they are already aligned within. Now comes the important part. Depth is not passive. It's not hiding. It's an active practice. You must train it deliberately. Start by creating daily space where nothing competes for your attention. No background input, No idle scrolling, just you and your thoughts. Sit with them, observe them. Did this through journaling, not to impress anyone but to refine his character. You can do the same. Ask yourself simple but demanding questions. What am I avoiding by staying busy? What thoughts keep returning when it's quiet? Don't judge the answers. Just notice. This exercise strengthens your capacity for depth more than any external achievement ever could. Another practice is learning to speak less but with more intention. The Stoics believed words should serve reason, not ego. Before you speak, pause. Ask yourself whether what you're about to say adds clarity or just adds sound. This doesn't mean becoming silent, it means becoming precise. When you do speak from that place, your words carry weight. They come from consideration, not impulse. And over time, you'll notice something subtle. You don't need many connections to feel understood. You understand yourself first. That changes everything. You also deepen by choosing what you consume mentally. Most people let their minds be invaded all day long. Opinions, outrage, trends, none of it filtered. Depth requires boundaries. Seneca advised limiting exposure to what unsettles the mind. Be ruthless here. Protect your inner environment the same way you protect your body. Feed your mind fewer things but better things. Read slowly. Reflect often. Return to ideas that challenge you instead of chasing novelty. This builds an inner world that is rich enough to stand on its own. And let's be honest, there will be moments when valuing depth feels lonely. That's not a flaw, that's a transition. You're shedding the habit of external noise and the silence can feel unfamiliar at first. But Stoicism never promised comfort, it promised strength. Epictetus reminded us that discomfort is often the price of freedom. Stay with it. Don't rush to fill the gap. Let the quiet teach you what your constant activity never could. Over time, that quiet becomes grounding rather than empty. You stop craving stimulation. You start trusting your own presence. A powerful exercise here is voluntary solitude. Not isolation born from resentment, but chosen withdrawal for sharpening the mind. Decide in advance when you'll step back from interaction, not as an escape, but as training. During that time, reflect on your principles. Revisit Stoic ideas. Ask how you can live them more cleanly. This builds inner coherence. And when you return to others, you return as someone centered, not scattered. You're no longer seeking depth from outside. You're bringing it with you. Valuing depth over noise also means accepting that not everyone will understand your pace, and that's fine. The Stoics taught indifference to external judgment, not because opinions do exist, but because they don't govern your character. Your task is not to be widely known, but to be inwardly aligned. Said, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. That principle alone eliminates most noise. Live by it. Let it shape your choices. Let it simplify your life. In the end, the lack of friends isn't a deficit when depth is your priority. It's a byproduct of clarity. You're no longer collecting connections to avoid yourself. You're cultivating a mind that can stand alone without becoming hard. That balance, self-sufficiency without bitterness, is deeply Stoic. Keep choosing depth. Keep choosing quality of thought over quantity of interaction. Keep training your attention like it matters, because it does. What you focus on becomes who you are. And when your inner world is deep, steady, and ordered, you are never truly alone. Number 2, you refuse shallow connections. When you find yourself with fewer friends than most people seem to have, it's easy to assume something is missing in you. The Stoics would tell you the opposite. Often, it means you refuse shallow connections. You're not interested in collecting faces, names, or casual attachments that dissolve the moment they're tested. You sense, maybe instinctively, that not every interaction deserves a seat at the table of your inner life. Epictetus warned, be careful whom you choose to be close to. You live that warning even if you've never put it into words. You don't want noise, you want resonance, and that choice, while quiet, is powerful. You feel it when conversations skim the surface and never go deeper. Something in you pulls back, Not out of arrogance, not out of fear, but out of clarity. You understand that your time, energy, and attention are finite. Reminded himself daily that life is short and easily wasted. You've absorbed that lesson. You don't want to waste your inner world on bonds that demand performance instead of presence. So you step away. You choose solitude over social clutter. That decision can feel lonely at times, but it's also deeply honest. You're saying, if it's going to exist in my life, it must be real. Refusing shallow connections means you are selective about who influences your thoughts. The Stoics believed character was contagious. Seneca wrote that the people around you shape your habits whether you notice it or not. You take that seriously. You don't want to be pulled into cycles of gossip, comparison, or emotional chaos. You protect your mind like a disciplined guardian. That's not weakness. That's self-command. And yes, it can mean fewer friends, but it also means fewer inner conflicts. You sleep better when your values aren't constantly being negotiated just to fit in. There's also courage in this refusal. It takes strength to walk away from easy belonging. Shallow connections offer quick validation, fast laughs, and temporary distraction. You see through that. You know how empty it feels afterward. So instead of numbing yourself with constant interaction, you sit with yourself. You learn your own patterns. You observe your thoughts. This is deeply Stoic. Said, nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. You've learned how to retreat inward without running away from life. Still, refusing shallow connections doesn't mean closing your heart. It means training it. You're not cold. You're intentional. You're waiting for alignment, not perfection. You want conversations that stretch you, silence that feels comfortable, and presence that doesn't demand masks. That takes patience. And patience is one of the hardest disciplines. Epictetus taught that we must endure being misunderstood if we want to live according to reason. You may be seen as distant, reserved, or overly serious. Let them think that. Your task is not to be understood by everyone. Your task is to live well. This path does ask something of you. It asks you to take responsibility for your social life instead of blaming circumstances. The Stoics never romanticized isolation for its own sake. They valued friendship deeply, but only the kind rooted in virtue. Seneca said a true friend is someone before whom you can think aloud. Use that as your standard. Ask yourself regularly, am I avoiding shallow connections because I fear vulnerability or because I respect depth? Be honest. Stoicism is not about hiding, it's about clarity. If fear is guiding you, train courage. If values are guiding you, stand firm. Here's a practical exercise. For the next week, observe your reactions after interactions. Not the other person's behavior, but your inner state. Do you feel drained, scattered, or slightly irritated? Or do you feel steady, clear, and grounded? Write nothing else, just note the feeling. This trains awareness without judgment. Over time, patterns will appear. You'll see which connections align with your inner discipline and which quietly erode it. This isn't about cutting people off harshly. It's about choosing where you show up fully. Another exercise is to practice intentional presence. When you do engage with someone, be fully there. No performance, no mental escape. Speak less, listen more. Seneca advised, nature gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Let that ratio guide you. Shallow connections thrive on constant output. Depth grows in attention. Even brief interactions can carry weight when you're grounded. This practice sharpens discernment. You'll start noticing who meets you there and who can't tolerate that level of presence. Refusing shallow connections also means you're learning to be comfortable without constant social reassurance. This is a major Stoic victory. You are no longer outsourcing your self-worth. You don't need a crowd to feel real. You are building an internal anchor. Wrote that a man should stand upright without being propped up. You are learning to stand. And from that place, any connection you do allow becomes richer, not heavier. There will be moments when doubt creeps in. You'll wonder if you're missing out, if life is passing you by while others seem surrounded by people. In those moments, return to first principles. Ask yourself what kind of life you're actually trying to build: a loud one or a meaningful one, a busy one or a steady one. Stoicism teaches you to define success internally. If your days are aligned with your values, then nothing essential is missing. In time, this refusal reshapes you. You become calmer, clearer, harder to manipulate. You speak with intention because you're not used to filling silence. You listen deeply because you're not desperate to be heard. And when a genuine connection does appear, you recognize it immediately. There's no rush, no confusion, just a quiet sense of rightness. Seneca said that friendship grows slowly. You're willing to wait. So don't rush to label your lack of friends as a flaw. See it as a training ground. You are practicing discernment. You are honoring your inner world. You are refusing to dilute yourself for the sake of belonging. Keep refining this stance. Stay open but anchored. Selective, not closed. Patient, not passive. That balance is rare. And in Stoic terms, rarity often signals virtue. Number 3, you are comfortable with solitude. When you are comfortable with solitude, it doesn't mean something is missing in you. It means something has settled. Most people rush to label aloneness as a problem, as if silence were a disease and stillness a weakness. But you already know better. You can sit with yourself without scrambling for noise, without reaching for distraction, without begging the world to keep you entertained. That alone places you ahead of the restless crowd. Epictetus said, "If you seek tranquility, do less." Solitude is where less finally becomes possible. It strips away the unnecessary. It removes the constant performance. And what remains is you, unfiltered, unarmored, unafraid to meet your own mind. When you are comfortable alone, you stop outsourcing your sense of worth. You no longer measure your value by invitations, messages, or social approval. You don't need to be seen constantly to feel real. Reminded himself, nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. You begin to understand that solitude is not emptiness. It is space. Space to think clearly. Space to hear your own thoughts instead of the echo of others' opinions. Space to sharpen your judgment rather than dull it through constant stimulation. And once you taste that clarity, you start protecting it fiercely. There is a quiet strength that grows in you when you stop fearing being alone. You notice it when your emotions stop swinging wildly based on who is around you. You notice it when boredom no longer terrifies you. You notice it when silence feels grounding instead of awkward. This is not isolation. This is self-sufficiency of the inner kind. Seneca wrote, "He who is contented is rich." Solitude teaches you contentment the hard way by removing the crutches. No applause, no distractions. Just you, learning to stand without leaning. You also begin to see how much of social behavior is driven by avoidance. Avoidance of discomfort, avoidance of self-reflection, avoidance of responsibility for one's own mind. When you are comfortable with solitude, you stop running from yourself. You sit still long enough to notice patterns, thoughts that repeat, emotions that flare, urges that rise and fall, and instead of reacting, you observe. This is deeply Stoic. Epictetus urged, "Do not be carried away by impressions." Solitude is where you practice that discipline. You watch impressions arrive. You let them pass. You realize you are not your thoughts, not your impulses, not even your moods. You are the one who witnesses them. Comfort with solitude also hardens you against manipulation. When you don't need constant companionship, you don't tolerate shallow connections. You don't cling, you don't chase, you don't shrink yourself to be included. You can walk away without drama because you know how to be alone. That freedom is intoxicating. It changes how you move through the world. You choose relationships instead of needing them. You engage without desperation. You listen without seeking validation. As Seneca warned, associate with people who are likely to improve you. Solitude sharpens your standards so that when you do connect, it's intentional, not compulsive. There is also a discipline hidden inside solitude. When no one is watching, excuses lose their power. You confront your habits honestly. You see where you are undisciplined, where you procrastinate, where you lie to yourself. This can be uncomfortable, even painful. But Stoicism never promised comfort, it promised clarity. Said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Solitude is where that power is trained. No audience, no shortcuts. Just repetition, patience, and self-command. If you want to deepen this comfort with solitude, start small but deliberate. Set aside time each day with no inputs. No music, no scrolling, no conversation, just sit. Breathe slowly. Let your thoughts surface without chasing them. When discomfort arises, don't escape it, stay. Notice how it peaks and fades. This is a practical exercise in resilience. You are teaching your nervous system that silence is not a threat. Another practice is written reflection. Write without an audience in mind. Don't craft, don't perform. Just unload your thoughts onto the page. This clears mental clutter and reveals what truly occupies your attention. You can also practice voluntary withdrawal, a favorite Stoic tool. Choose simplicity for a period of time. Fewer words, fewer interactions, fewer comforts, not as punishment but as training. Seneca believed in rehearsing hardship so that fortune could not shake you. Solitude is part of that rehearsal. It strengthens your independence from external conditions. You become harder to disturb because you are no longer addicted to stimulation. Over time, you'll notice something subtle shift. You stop trying to fill every quiet moment. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop fearing pauses. Silence becomes a companion rather than an enemy. Your thoughts slow down. Your decisions become cleaner. Your emotional reactions lose their grip. This is not withdrawal from life. It is preparation for it. Stoicism was never about hiding from the world, but about meeting it from a position of inner stability. When you are comfortable with solitude, you carry your home within you. You don't feel lost when external structures fall away. You don't panic when plans collapse or people disappear. You adapt. You endure. You remain centered. As advised, be like the cliff against which the waves continually break. It stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it. Solitude turns you into that cliff. Quiet, unmoved, present. So don't rush to label your lack of friends as a flaw. See it as a phase of refinement, a season of strengthening, a return to yourself. Use it, train in it. Let solitude teach you patience, self-command, and clarity. The world is loud, opinions are endless, distractions are everywhere, but you know how to sit in silence and not be consumed by it. And that, whether you realize it yet or not, is a rare and powerful advantage. Number 4, you think independently. When you think independently, it can feel like walking without a crowd to confirm each step. And yet, this is precisely where Stoicism places its quiet strength. You are not broken because your mind does not rush to borrow opinions. You are not lacking because you don't echo the noise around you. You are practicing something rare. Epictetus warned that if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. And that line cuts deep because independent thought almost always looks strange from the outside. When you think for yourself, you stop outsourcing your values. You stop asking for permission to believe what feels true after reflection. This isn't isolation for its own sake. This is discipline of the mind. This is you choosing clarity over comfort, truth over approval, and inner alignment over social reward. Independent thinking begins the moment you stop confusing consensus with wisdom. The Stoics never trusted the crowd, not because people are evil, but because people are distracted, reactive, and emotionally led. Reminded himself again and again not to be swept away by what they say or they think, because most people don't even examine their own thoughts. When you think independently, you slow things down. You pause before agreeing. You question before accepting. You feel the pull of popular opinion, and instead of surrendering, you observe it. That alone changes how you move through the world. You become less impulsive, less programmable, less shaken by trends, outrage, or approval. You begin to live from the inside out rather than the outside in. There is a quiet loneliness that sometimes comes with this, and Stoicism doesn't deny it. It teaches you to endure it without resentment. Seneca wrote that the wise person is self-sufficient, not because he rejects others, but because he is not dependent on them for his sense of direction. When you think independently, you stop using people as mirrors to tell you who you are. You develop your own internal compass. And yes, that means fewer voices agreeing with you, fewer pats on the back, fewer instant affirmations. But it also means fewer regrets, fewer moments where you look back and realize you betrayed your own judgment just to belong. Thinking independently means you examine your beliefs as if they were tools. You ask, does this serve my character? Does this align with reason? Does this strengthen my self-command? The Stoics believe that freedom begins in the mind, and a mind that cannot think for itself is not free, no matter how many people surround it. When you think independently, you stop absorbing emotional contagion. You don't automatically panic because others panic. You don't chase desires just because they're advertised as normal. You don't feel obligated to adopt opinions simply because they're loud. This is mental sovereignty. This is you reclaiming ownership of your thoughts. But this kind of independence isn't passive. It requires work, daily work. You have to notice when your thoughts are borrowed rather than chosen. You have to catch yourself repeating phrases, beliefs, or moral positions you've never personally examined. Advised himself to strip things bare, to see them for what they are, not what society paints them to be. You can do the same. A practical exercise is simple but demanding. At the end of each day, write down one belief you acted on. Then ask yourself, why do I believe this? Where did it come from? Does it stand up to reason? This isn't about self-criticism, it's about self-authorship. Independent thinking also means you stop fearing disagreement. Not because you enjoy conflict, but because your identity is no longer fragile. Epictetus taught that if someone insults you and they're right, you should thank them, and if they're wrong, there's nothing to be upset about. That mindset only works if your sense of self isn't built on external validation. When you think independently, you don't need everyone to agree with you to feel steady. You're grounded in examined principles. You're anchored in values you've tested through reason, not popularity. There's another layer to this that often goes unnoticed. Independent thinking sharpens your judgment of yourself. You stop lying to yourself to maintain a certain image. You become more honest about your weaknesses, your impulses, your inconsistencies. Seneca believed that self-examination was a daily duty, not a luxury. When you think independently, you stop defending your ego and start refining your character. You're less interested in appearing right and more committed to becoming better. That shift alone changes everything. It turns solitude into a workshop rather than a punishment. If you want to strengthen this habit, practice voluntary mental resistance. When you encounter a strong opinion, don't accept or reject it immediately. Sit with it. Argue against it in your own mind. Argue for it. See where it collapses and where it holds. This trains you to think rather than react. Another exercise is intentional silence. Not social silence, but mental silence. Spend time without consuming opinions, commentary, or analysis. Let your own thoughts surface. At first, this can feel uncomfortable, even unsettling. That's normal. You're meeting your own mind without distractions. Stay with it. Clarity comes after discomfort. Independent thinking also teaches you patience with misunderstanding. You will be misread. Your choices won't always make sense to others. Stoicism prepares you for this by reminding you that your duty is not to be understood but to be virtuous. Wrote, I can choose not to be harmed and I won't feel harmed. That includes emotional harm from judgment. When you think independently, you stop measuring your life by applause. You measure it by integrity. You ask yourself, did I act according to reason today? Did I remain faithful to my principles? That becomes enough. Over time, this way of thinking changes how you experience connection itself. You no longer seek people to complete you or validate you. You engage from wholeness, not hunger. Stoicism doesn't reject friendship, but it rejects dependence. When your mind is your own, you can stand alone without bitterness and connect without fear. You don't cling. You don't conform. You don't disappear into the crowd. You remain yourself, steady and examined. So if you find yourself thinking differently, questioning more, standing apart more often than not, don't rush to label it as a flaw. See it as training. See it as discipline. See it as the price of inner freedom. As Epictetus said, no man is free who is not master of himself. Thinking independently is how you begin that mastery. It's not loud, it's not glamorous, but it is powerful. And it's something you can choose every single day, one examined thought at a time. Number 5, you observe more than you speak. When you have fewer people around you, something subtle begins to happen inside you. The noise thins out. The pressure to perform, to impress, to constantly react starts to dissolve. And in that quiet space, you begin to notice how much of life you were missing when you were busy filling the air with words. You start observing more than you speak, not because you are afraid to speak, not because you lack thoughts, but because you finally understand the weight of attention. Epictetus hinted at this when he said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." This isn't a rule meant to shrink you. It's an invitation to sharpen you. When you speak less, your mind stops racing ahead to be heard and instead settles into seeing clearly. You notice tone, rhythm, hesitation, intention. You notice yourself. And once you notice yourself, you stop leaking energy. Observation is power, but only when it's intentional. When you speak less, you give your thoughts time to ripen. You stop blurting out half-formed ideas just to feel included. You stop negotiating your worth through constant expression. Silence becomes a filter. Only what truly matters passes through. Reminded himself, be content to seem what you really are. When you observe more than you speak, you stop performing and start aligning. Your words, when they come, carry weight because they were chosen, not dumped. You feel this shift internally first. There's a steadiness that develops, a grounded patience. You are no longer rushed by the fear of being overlooked. You realize something freeing. Not everything requires your comment, your opinion, your reaction, and that restraint strengthens you. This habit of observation changes how you move through the world. You begin to see patterns instead of moments. You catch inconsistencies. You sense emotional undercurrents. You understand that most people speak to release tension, not to convey truth. And because you're not driven by that urge, you gain clarity. Seneca warned, nature has given us 1 tongue and 2 ears, that we may hear from others twice as much as we speak. The Stoics weren't praising silence for its own sake. They were pointing toward mastery. When you talk less, you listen better. When you listen better, you understand more. When you understand more, you act with precision instead of impulse. This is not passivity. This is control. You might notice discomfort at first. Silence can feel like exposure. It removes the armor of chatter. It forces you to sit with your thoughts without distraction. But that discomfort is training. Each moment you choose not to speak unnecessarily, you reclaim a small piece of discipline. You are teaching yourself that you don't need external validation to exist confidently. You don't need to fill gaps to feel relevant. This is deeply Stoic. Control what is yours, your judgments, your responses, your words, and release what is. The quieter you become externally, the more ordered your inner world grows. To practice this, start with intentional pauses. Before you speak, count silently to 3. Not to censor yourself, but to ask one simple question: is this useful, true, or necessary? Often you'll realize it's none of the 3. Let it go. Another exercise is the silent hour. Choose a fixed period where you speak only if absolutely required. During that time, observe your impulses. Notice how often you want to speak just to break silence, to assert presence, to soothe unease. Don't judge it. Just observe. Observation without judgment is the beginning of wisdom, as the Stoics understood. You'll start seeing how much energy is saved when words are not wasted. As you deepen this habit, your internal dialogue also changes. You become less reactive, less scattered. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head. You stop arguing with imagined opponents. Instead, you watch your thoughts pass like clouds. Practice this mental distance relentlessly, reminding himself that thoughts are impressions, not commands. When you observe more than you speak, both outwardly and inwardly, you regain authorship over your mind. You choose your words the same way you choose your actions, deliberately. There's another layer to this. When you speak less, you stop trying to control how others perceive you. You accept that misunderstanding is part of life. You stop over-explaining. Seneca cautioned against this when he wrote that a wise person is content with their own approval. You don't need to narrate yourself. You don't need to justify your silence. Your presence becomes enough. And paradoxically, when you stop chasing attention, attention becomes less important. You are no longer drained by social friction. You conserve your strength for what truly matters, your character. A practical way to reinforce this is through reflective writing. At the end of the day, write down moments where you spoke unnecessarily and moments where you chose silence. Not to criticize yourself, but to notice patterns. Over time, you'll see improvement. You'll notice fewer impulsive remarks, fewer regrets. Another exercise is selective speech. Commit to speaking only when you can improve the situation, clarify confusion, or express genuine intent. This forces quality over quantity. Your words become tools, not habits. You may begin to feel a quiet confidence growing, not the loud kind that demands space, but the steady kind that commands respect without asking. This is the confidence of someone who knows they can remain silent and still be whole. The Stoics valued this deeply. They understood that self-mastery is more impressive than self-expression. When you observe more than you speak, you're practicing restraint, patience, and humility all at once. These are not weaknesses. They are strengths refined. Ultimately, this isn't about withdrawing from the world. It's about engaging with it intelligently. You're still present, still aware, still capable of speaking powerfully when the moment calls for it. But now, your silence has purpose and your speech has direction. You are no longer scattered across every conversation. You are centered, and in that centeredness you become harder to shake, harder to manipulate, harder to exhaust. This is the quiet strength the Stoics lived by. And it's available to you every time you choose to observe first and speak second. Number 6, you protect your time and energy. When you protect your time and energy, it doesn't look impressive from the outside. It doesn't announce itself. It often looks like emptiness, like fewer names on your phone, quieter evenings, long stretches where no one interrupts you. And yet this choice carries weight. It's not loneliness by accident, it's solitude by intention. You're beginning to understand something the Stoics spoke about often but few truly live by. Your life is made of moments, and moments are made of attention. Once spent, they never return. Epictetus warned, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Protecting your time is you acting on that truth. You're no longer leaking energy into conversations, obligations, and emotional demands that leave you hollow. You're deciding that your inner world deserves guarding, not constant access by others. You start to notice how draining unnecessary interaction can be. Not because people are bad, but because unfiltered access to you is expensive. Every exchange costs something: focus, patience, emotional bandwidth. When you say yes too often, you quietly say no to yourself. Stoicism asks you to reverse that reflex. Wrote, ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? That question becomes your shield. You stop filling your days just to avoid stillness. You stop mistaking busyness for meaning. You begin to see that fewer friends doesn't mean less value. It often means higher standards for how your energy is spent. You're no longer available by default. You're available by choice. There's a calm that comes with this shift. Not the calm of having everything figured out, but the calm of no longer being pulled in 10 directions at once. You reclaim your mornings, your thoughts, your evenings. You sit with yourself longer than before, and at first it feels uncomfortable. The mind gets loud when it's no longer distracted, but the Stoics never feared this. Seneca said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." You're learning to be somewhere again, fully present in your own life. This is not withdrawal from the world, it's alignment with it. You're conserving energy the way a disciplined person conserves strength, not out of fear, but out of respect for what it can be used to build. Protecting your time also sharpens your sense of priority. When your social circle shrinks, your values expand. You become selective not just with people, but with thoughts, habits, and impulses. You stop reacting instantly. You pause, you measure, you choose. This is deeply Stoic. Epictetus advised practicing restraint not only in action but in attention. You're doing exactly that. You're no longer obligated to entertain every message, engage every opinion, or carry every emotional weight placed in front of you. You begin to feel lighter, not because life is easier, but because you're no longer carrying what was never yours to hold. And here's the quiet truth: protecting your energy teaches you self-trust. When you stop outsourcing your sense of worth to social validation, you start building it internally. You become comfortable with your own company, and that changes everything. You're no longer chasing connection to escape yourself. You're choosing it only when it adds something real. Reminded himself, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Fewer distractions mean clearer thoughts. Clearer thoughts mean steadier emotions. Steadier emotions mean a stronger you. This is not isolation. This is discipline of the soul. You may notice that your tolerance for noise drops. Gossip feels heavy. Drama feels unnecessary. Constant stimulation feels exhausting. This isn't arrogance, it's awareness. You're becoming sensitive to what drains you and what restores you. Stoicism never demanded you cut yourself off from others, only that you stop being ruled by them. By protecting your time, you reclaim authorship over your days. You decide when to engage and when to step back. That choice alone restores a sense of quiet power many people never experience. To live this way requires practice, not perfection. Start with a simple daily exercise the Stoics used: a morning intention. Before the day begins, tell yourself what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Decide in advance where you will be firm and where you will be flexible. In the evening, reflect. Ask yourself where your energy went and whether it was spent wisely. Seneca believed daily reflection was essential, saying, "Each day acquire something that will fortify you against poverty, against death, indeed against other misfortunes as well." Your reflection fortifies you against wasted time. Another practice is voluntary withdrawal. Not isolation, but intentional pauses from interaction. Sit in silence. Remove stimulation. Let your mind settle without reaching for distraction. Notice how often the urge to connect is really an urge to avoid discomfort. Observe it without judgment. This builds resilience. It teaches you that you don't need constant input to be whole. You are already enough when you are alone with your thoughts and steady in your breath. You can also practice selective availability. Before agreeing to anything, pause long enough to feel whether it aligns with your values. If it doesn't, decline without guilt. The Stoics understood that guilt is often a sign of misplaced obligation. You are not required to be everything to everyone. You are required to live in accordance with reason and virtue. Protecting your time is an act of virtue when it preserves your capacity to live well. Over time, something subtle happens. You become less reactive, less rushed, more grounded. Your energy stops spilling everywhere and starts gathering strength. You speak less but with more intention. You listen more carefully, including to yourself. You realize that the absence of constant companionship has given you something rare: space to grow, space to think, space to become. So when you look at your life and notice fewer friends, don't rush to label it as loss. Look closer. Ask what you've gained. Ask how your time feels now compared to before. Ask whether your inner world is calmer, clearer, stronger. The Stoics didn't measure a good life by how crowded it was, but by how aligned it was. You are not missing out. You are refining. You are protecting what matters most. And in doing so, you are quietly practicing one of the deepest Stoic lessons of all. Guard your inner citadel, because everything worth building begins there. Number 7, you are in a phase of inner growth. You are not broken because your circle is small. You are not behind, defective, or failing at life because there are fewer voices around you right now. From a Stoic perspective, this phase you're in is not a punishment, it's preparation. It's refinement. It's the quiet season where excess falls away and what remains is real. Wrote, look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if thou wilt ever dig. This is exactly what's happening to you. When friendships thin out, distractions lose their grip, and noise fades, life is inviting you inward. Not gently, but firmly. And that invitation, if you accept it, changes you. Right now, you're learning how to sit with yourself without reaching for validation, without outsourcing your sense of worth. That's not comfortable. It was never meant to be. But Stoicism never promised comfort, it promised clarity. When there are fewer people to lean on, you start noticing your own habits, your thought patterns, your impulses. You see where you've been living on autopilot. You become aware of how often you use connection to avoid stillness. Seneca warned, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." Solitude exposes imagination. It strips away the stories and leaves you face to face with truth. And truth, while sharp at first, is what strengthens you. This phase is sharpening your self-trust. When no one is constantly affirming you, you begin to ask better questions. Do I approve of myself today? Did I act with integrity when no one was watching? Did I govern my emotions, or did they govern me? Epictetus reminds you, no man is free who is not master of himself. Fewer friendships mean fewer emotional crutches. That forces you to build inner discipline. You start becoming someone who can stand alone without becoming hard, without becoming bitter. That balance, strength without resentment, is rare, and it's forged only in periods like this. You may feel invisible at times, but invisibility is fertile ground. When there's no audience, your actions become cleaner. You stop performing. You stop shaping yourself to be digestible. You start shaping yourself to be true. This is where values stop being ideas and start becoming habits. Stoicism teaches you to focus on what's within your control, and this season makes that lesson unavoidable. You can't control who stays. You can't control who understands you. But you can control how you respond to loneliness, how you use your time, how you train your mind. Didn't write his meditations for applause. He wrote them in solitude as a practice, as a way to keep his soul aligned. That's your invitation too. Instead of resisting this phase, lean into it deliberately. Begin with a simple daily exercise. Each morning, ask yourself what kind of person you intend to be today, regardless of who is present or absent. Not what you want to achieve, but how you want to behave. Calm, honest, disciplined, courageous. Then at night, review your day without judgment. Seneca practiced this, and he wrote about examining his conscience before sleep. Ask yourself where you acted in accordance with your values and where you didn't. No shame, no drama, just awareness. This practice alone will make you steadier than most people you'll ever meet. Use the quiet to train emotional endurance. When loneliness rises, don't immediately distract yourself. Sit with it. Observe it like a Stoic would, without labeling it as good or bad. Say to yourself, this is a sensation, not a sentence. This is a moment, not an identity. Epictetus taught that it's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Loneliness is not proof of unworthiness. It's a signal that you are transitioning. Let it pass through you without resistance, and you'll notice it loses its power faster than you expect. Another practice, voluntary discomfort. Choose small, intentional challenges that strengthen your resilience, physical discipline, mental restraint, controlled silence. Not to punish yourself, but to remind yourself that you can endure more than you think. When you train yourself to be comfortable with less stimulation, less affirmation, less noise, you become unshakable when life inevitably takes things away. This is Stoic preparation, not pessimism. As Seneca said, he who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive. You're also learning discernment. When your social world shrinks, you become more selective by necessity. You begin to understand that not all connection is nourishment. Some bonds drain more than they give. This phase teaches you to value depth over proximity, alignment over familiarity. That's wisdom earned, not taught. And once you've built this inner stability, future connections will be chosen from strength, not from need. You won't cling. You won't chase. You'll meet others as a whole person, not as someone looking to be completed. There's a reason the Stoics emphasized independence of mind. They understood how fragile a life becomes when it depends too heavily on external approval. You're being trained out of that fragility now. Slowly, quietly, uncomfortably, but effectively. Each day you choose discipline over distraction, reflection over avoidance, presence over panic. You're building something solid inside you, something that doesn't disappear when people do. So don't rush this phase. Don't label it as a failure. Treat it as training. Speak to yourself with respect. Keep your standards high even when no one is watching, especially then. Remember words. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Revoke the belief that being alone means being less. Replace it with the understanding that you are becoming more. This is inner growth. It's not loud. It doesn't announce itself. But when it's done, you'll notice the difference in how you walk, how you speak, how you choose. And most importantly, how you stand, steady, grounded, and complete, even when no one is standing beside you. Number 8, you don't seek validation from crowds. When you stop seeking validation from crowds, something quiet but powerful begins to happen inside you. At first, it can feel uncomfortable, almost like standing in an empty room where noise once lived. You notice the silence more, you notice yourself more, and that is exactly the point. The Stoics never chased applause, they questioned it. Epictetus warned, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That line isn't about humiliation, it's about freedom. The moment you stop outsourcing your sense of worth to other people's reactions, you reclaim ownership of your inner world. You no longer wake up asking, will they approve of me today? You wake up asking, did I live according to my principles? That shift changes everything. You start to see how exhausting validation seeking really is. It keeps you performing, adjusting, editing yourself in real time. One group wants you louder, another wants you softer, one rewards conformity, another rewards rebellion. Chasing all of them is a losing game. Reminded himself, I do not concern myself with what people think of me. I concern myself with what I think of myself. Read that again slowly. This is not arrogance, this is alignment. When you no longer need a crowd to clap, you can finally hear your own thoughts without distortion. You become less reactive, less desperate to be seen, more anchored in who you are when no one is watching. A lack of friends or a smaller circle often forces this realization faster than comfort ever could. Without constant social mirrors reflecting you back to yourself, you are left alone with your standards. And that can feel brutal at first. But Stoicism teaches you that discomfort is not the enemy, avoidance is. Seneca wrote, "Withdraw into yourself as much as you can, not to escape the world but to refine your judgment." When validation disappears, you begin to test your values against reality instead of popularity. You ask yourself whether your actions are right, not whether they are liked. This is where real confidence is born, not the loud, performative kind, but the steady kind that doesn't need witnesses. You also stop confusing attention with connection. Crowds are noisy, but they are shallow. Approval is quick, fleeting, unreliable. One day it's there, the next day it's gone. When you detach from that cycle, you gain emotional stability. You're no longer riding the highs of praise or the lows of neglect. Epictetus was clear. If you are disturbed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Validation only hurts when you believe you need it. Once you see it as optional, its power over you collapses. You don't harden, you simplify. You become harder to manipulate because your self-worth is no longer for sale. This is where discipline replaces approval. Instead of asking whether something will be admired, you ask whether it is correct. Instead of seeking reassurance, you build proof through action. Stoicism isn't about isolation for its own sake. It's about independence of judgment. You become your own witness, your own judge, and that requires courage. It takes strength to live without constant affirmation. It takes restraint to do the right thing when no one is there to reward you for it. But this restraint sharpens you. It strips away performative habits and leaves behind something real. To practice this, start with deliberate silence. Not just external silence, but internal restraint. For a set period each day, resist the urge to explain yourself, justify yourself, or seek reassurance. Let your actions stand on their own. Another exercise is voluntary anonymity. Do something aligned with your values and tell no one. Not later, not indirectly, no hinting. Seneca praised this kind of discipline because it trains you to act from principle, not praise. You can also practice negative visualization, imagining the loss of approval, misunderstanding, or rejection. Not to frighten yourself, but to see that you remain intact without them. Your character does not dissolve when applause disappears. Over time, you'll notice a shift. You stop performing for imaginary audiences. You speak more honestly because you're no longer managing reactions. You make decisions faster because you're not polling the room. Wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinions than our own." Stoicism invites you to reverse that imbalance, to trust your reason, to respect your conscience, to stand comfortably alone when needed, without bitterness, without superiority, without fear. This doesn't make you antisocial, it makes you selective. When you do connect, it's not out of need but choice. And paradoxically, that inner independence often makes your presence calmer, heavier, more grounded. People sense when you are not trying to extract approval from them. You listen better. You react less. You are no longer negotiating your worth in every interaction. That is quiet power. So if you find yourself without a crowd, don't rush to fill the space. Use it. Let it teach you self-trust. Let it refine your standards. Let it burn away the habit of needing to be seen. As Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. No audience required. Just you, your principles, and the discipline to live by them, consistently, calmly, and without asking for permission. Number 9, you choose peace over popularity. When you choose peace over popularity, you are not failing at life. You are finally listening to it. Most people never slow down enough to hear that quiet inner signal telling them that constant social noise is draining them. You have, and that already places you closer to wisdom than you might realize. Stoicism never praised crowds or applause, it praised clarity. Wrote, "If you seek tranquility, do less." Not less effort, but less unnecessary engagement, less proving, less performing. You are not here to be liked by everyone. You are here to live in alignment with yourself. Popularity demands fragments of you. Peace asks for the whole thing and gives it back stronger. You've probably noticed that chasing approval creates tension in the body, a subtle anxiety, a constant adjustment of tone, opinion, energy. Stoicism teaches you to step away from that inner negotiation. Epictetus warned, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That includes being misunderstood, overlooked, or even forgotten by people who only valued the version of you that entertained them. When friendships depend on constant availability, emotional labor, or agreement, they are not friendships, they are contracts. You choosing peace is you refusing to sign those contracts anymore. This path requires courage because solitude exposes you to yourself. No distractions, no borrowed identities. Seneca said, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." The fear of having fewer friends is often louder than the reality of having more space. Space to think clearly, space to act deliberately, space to recover your nervous system from constant social friction. You are not antisocial, you are selective. And selectivity is a form of self-respect. Peace over popularity means you no longer explain yourself excessively. You stop defending your quietness. You stop apologizing for declining invitations that drain you. You understand that every yes has a cost, and you finally start counting it. Stoicism asks you to focus on what is within your control, your thoughts, your actions, your values. Other people's expectations do not qualify. Reminded himself, you don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. That sentence alone can free you from a lifetime of unnecessary social stress. There is also strength in not being everywhere. When you reduce noise, your inner voice grows clearer. You start to notice how often people gather not out of connection but out of avoidance, avoiding silence, avoiding self-reflection, avoiding responsibility. You are choosing the harder road, the one that builds inner order. The Stoics believed that a calm mind is not accidental, it is trained, and training requires fewer inputs, not more. This does not mean you reject humanity. It means you reject performative closeness. You value depth over frequency, substance over access. Seneca wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." Not many people qualify, and that's okay. You are not meant to carry the emotional weight of dozens. A small circle, or even a season of solitude, can sharpen your judgment, stabilize your emotions, and return your energy to you. Now comes the practice. Start with a daily silence ritual, 5 minutes. No phone, no music, no mental rehearsals, just sit and observe your thoughts without correcting them. This trains you to be comfortable without social stimulation. Next, practice voluntary withdrawal once a week. Not avoidance, intentional absence. Notice how nothing collapses. The world continues. Your value remains intact. Then adopt negative visualization, a classic Stoic exercise. Imagine being disliked, misunderstood, alone. Sit with it. You'll realize the fear weakens when faced directly. What you resist controls you. What you face loses power. Another practice, audit your social energy. At the end of each interaction, ask yourself not how they felt, but how you feel. Energized or depleted, clear or scattered. Over time, patterns emerge. You stop needing justification. Your body already knows the truth. And finally, rehearse internal validation. When you catch yourself seeking approval, repeat Epictetus' words. If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses, but answer, "He was ignorant of my other faults." This trains emotional independence. You stop outsourcing your worth. Choosing peace over popularity is not withdrawal from life. It is alignment with it. You are building a mind that is not shaken by opinion, a character that does not bend for comfort, and a life that feels quiet, but solid. Let others chase numbers. You are cultivating stillness. And stillness, when disciplined, becomes unshakable power. Number 10, you are preparing for a stronger version of yourself. There is a quiet truth hidden inside your loneliness, and most people miss it because they rush to label solitude as a flaw. But what if this lack of friends isn't a failure at all? What if it's a preparation phase? Once wrote, "Nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Read that again. He didn't say retreat into applause, approval, or company. He said into yourself, and that's exactly where you are right now. Life has pulled noise away from you so you can hear what actually matters. You are being stripped down, not punished. You are being shaped. When you don't have many people around, you are forced to confront yourself without distraction. No masks, no performances, no borrowed identities. And yes, that can feel uncomfortable at first. The mind rebels when it no longer has constant stimulation. But Stoicism teaches that discomfort is often the doorway to strength. Epictetus reminded us, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Solitude gives you the space to answer that first question honestly. Who are you becoming when no one is watching? What values still stand when there's no audience to applaud them? These questions only emerge in silence, and silence is something your current season is generously giving you. You may notice that without friends to lean on, you begin to rely more on your own judgment. At first, that can feel heavy, even scary. But over time, something subtle changes. Your decisions become cleaner, your thinking sharper. You stop outsourcing your sense of direction. Seneca warned against this dependence when he said, "He who follows the crowd will never be followed by the crowd." Right now, you are not following anyone, and that's the point. You are learning how to stand on your own intellectual and emotional feet. This is how inner authority is built, not through constant agreement, but through thoughtful resistance and self-trust. There is also a refining happening. When your social circle shrinks, your energy stops leaking everywhere. You become more selective, even with your thoughts. You begin to notice what drains you and what strengthens you. Stoicism isn't about isolation for the sake of it, it's about alignment. If a thing is humanly possible, said, consider it to be within your reach. The stronger version of you requires focus, discipline, and self-honesty. Those traits rarely grow in crowded rooms. They grow when you are alone with your routines, your principles, and your inner dialogue. This phase is also teaching you emotional self-regulation. When you don't have constant reassurance from others, you are forced to learn how to soothe your own mind. That is an elite skill. Most people never develop it. They distract, scroll, talk, complain, or cling. You are learning how to sit with unease without collapsing. That's power. That's resilience. This is why Stoics place such importance on mastering impressions, on not being ruled by immediate feelings. Epictetus put it plainly, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Right now, what's happening is solitude, and how you react determines whether this becomes a wound or a weapon. You might feel behind at times, like everyone else is moving faster, connecting more, living louder. But Stoicism teaches you to measure progress internally, not socially. Your growth is not meant to be visible yet. It's subterranean, roots before branches, strength before display. A stronger version of you doesn't rush into rooms seeking validation. He walks in already complete. And that completeness is forged in moments like these, when you learn how to be enough for yourself. Here, where action matters. Use this time deliberately. Start with a daily solitude practice, even if solitude already surrounds you. Sit quietly for 10 minutes without stimulation. No phone, no music, just observe your thoughts without judgment. This is straight from Stoic reflection. Wrote his meditations not for others but for himself. You can do the same. Write one page each day answering a single question. What kind of person am I practicing to become today? Not tomorrow, not someday. Today. Train voluntary discomfort. Choose small, controlled challenges that strengthen your discipline. Wake up earlier than necessary. Sit with boredom without escaping it. Delay gratification on purpose. Seneca believed in rehearsing hardship so that life could never shock you. This isn't about punishment, it's about preparation. Every time you do something hard without applause, you are reinforcing the identity of someone who doesn't need external validation to move forward. Also, examine your standards. Solitude often raises them even if you don't notice it yet. You stop tolerating shallow interactions, empty conversations, and performative connections. That's growth. Don't rush to replace the absence with noise. Let your standards mature alongside you. The Stoics valued quality over quantity in all things, including relationships. When the time comes, the connections you form will be deliberate, not desperate. Most importantly, shift how you speak to yourself. Your inner voice becomes louder when others are quiet. Make sure it's disciplined, not cruel. Stoicism is firm, not harsh. Correct yourself, but don't insult yourself. Remind yourself daily, this phase is not permanent, but the strength I build here will be. Say it until it settles into your bones. You are not being left behind. You are being pulled inward so you can later move outward with clarity and force. The lack of friends is not a verdict on your worth. It is an invitation to refine it. As said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Let this be your way. Walk it with intention. The stronger version of you is not waiting somewhere in the future. He is being built quietly, patiently, right now, in this very space you're learning to endure. And remember this. The Stoics never measured a man by the size of his circle, but by the strength of his character. If you find yourself walking alone more often than not, it may not be a flaw, it may be a sign of growth. A quieter life sharpens the mind, reveals who you truly are, and frees you from the noise that weakens most people. Stoicism teaches us that solitude is not abandonment, it is self-mastery in progress. When you no longer depend on constant company for validation, you gain something far rarer, inner stability. The few who remain in your life will be there by choice, not convenience. So don't rush to fill the silence. Use it. Build yourself in it. Because when the world finally notices your strength, you won't need to chase connection. It will come to you naturally. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect, like the video, and subscribe for more Stoic lessons that build calm, confidence, and unshakable discipline. Until next time, stay grounded, stay disciplined, and walk your path with purpose.